Hello everybody, this is Eric the Goblin, and I am doing a follow-up video to my basic fantasy RPG character creation tutorial video I did yesterday. I did it as an experiment, and I found that I had so much fun doing it, I thought I'd do a follow-up one. This one I'm going to try and explain the manner in which a typical combat encounter is handled, or at least how I handle it. This is aimed mostly at newer players, but also newer DMs, because I'm starting to realize that the task of DM can seem daunting if you have to try and sort through tons and tons of things on your own. So I thought I would show how I handle some things to save myself some time. So for this, you are going to need a character, and luckily we have this motherfucker Lance. Remember this guy? I hate this dude. A lot of people think that they will need character sheets, official character sheets in order to do this, but I find that you get lots and lots of utility out of index cards. They sell them in various sizes, and because they are meant to be sold in packs and clipped together, you can organize a ton of information in this manner and save yourself a lot of headache by having to constantly print out these things. So index cards are really useful for a multitude of purposes, and I use them for character information. You'll also need some kind of way to represent how the action is happening. A lot of people will have varying opinions about what's the best way to handle representing combat. Some people like theater of the mind, in which the DM tries their best to describe the situation and the players will try to use that information to make their decisions. But I've always found that there's no substitute to having a physical representation. You don't really need a mat or a grid or anything like that. You can get by with just about, a chessboard. I'm sure you have a checkerboard, a chessboard on your house. And if you don't, there are other ways you can handle it. But I find that a chessboard in a GIF will provide exactly what you need. So here is our chessboard in order to measure distances accurately. You'll also need some way to represent the players and the things that they're going to encounter. I go to Michael's and I get these little wood chips, and I invite the players to draw what they think their character looks like. And I fucking despise Lance, so that's Lance. I hate his guts so much. Traditionally, fantasy games have used a tactical scale of 5 feet per unit. So each one of these little squares represents 5 feet. So, you're also going to need some dice. We're going to get out Lucky Mr. D20. We're also going to get out a 6-sided die. And we're going to get out an 8-sided die. And fuck matching. And this time, I have 2 hands, so I can close this gingerly and gracefully. Cool. So, we have our board. We have our character, Lance, that we want to see die. We have our stats for Lance. As a DM, you can use index cards also to keep track of your stats for creatures. And why this is useful is because you can use these over and over and over again. So in the event that you need to impromptu have a fight with something that you already have information for on a card, it's easily and readily available for you. So we got our grid, we got our character, we got our sheets, both for the player and for the things that they're fighting. So in this encounter, Lance is wandering around this marbled, abandoned temple, let's say. And he's going to encounter a couple of these tokens. From the same place I've gone to, Michael's, I will draw using colored markers on them. And I'll use different colors just so I have a way to differentiate between different things. And in this case, these green ones are little goblins, and this purple is a goblin mystic. All right, so the order of operations, or how do we handle combat? What are the steps? Typically, we have to figure out who goes first. Basic fantasy RPG suggests that each side rolls a 6-sided die and applies their dexterity modifier to it. And whoever has the highest number goes first. So, if we see Lance here, he's got a dexterity modifier of 0 because I hate him and he's a basic bitch and he doesn't have any chance to get a bonus. And he rolls a 1. Delightful. So we're going to do the same thing for these goblins here. That looks like a 4 to me. So during this encounter, the goblins will certainly go first. Unless otherwise specified, most creatures in this game will have a movement speed of 30 feet. What does that mean? They can move 30 feet. 5, 10, 15, 20. So if these are each 5, every single one of these goblins can run right up to Lance and hit him. So we're going to do that right now. But this guy's going to move only 5 feet ahead. The way that attacks are handled is you're going to take a number of 20-sided dice. You're going to roll it and add whatever attack bonus is applicable. So that first goblin rolled a 2. So what does that mean? He doesn't have an attack bonus, so it's just a 2. And he's trying to roll whatever Lance's armor class is. In this case, it's 14 because he has leather armor, and I decided to give him a shield because he's a prince. He doesn't want to get himself dirty. So that doesn't hit. That's 1 attack by the goblin. Another attack, which is also a miss, an 8. And a 15. This finally hits. So what does the stats for the goblin say? A club of a d4. So you're going to find your 4-sided dice. You're going to roll it. And if it went off the table, it doesn't count. Fuck that. A 2. So one of the things that everyone, well, at least myself, hate is writing on the character sheet and erasing and writing and erasing and erasing until the fucking sheet has a hole in it. There are a number of ways to handle this. One is you can just suck it up and put the hole in your character sheet and then remake it. Or you could use your whiteboard to keep track of changing information. And in this case, Lance has gone from an HP of 7 to now 6. It's impractical to have this for every player, but as a DM, this can be very, very useful. So as a player, you might use a scratch paper or an index card you don't mind ruining, or you just, erase on your character sheet. The other manner that I found that some people like to do is use these sticky notes. You put them on your character sheet, and you don't mind messing these up because they're just going to pop off of your character sheet when you're done. So those are the manners that people have done to handle this particular procedure. So that's not it, though. There's still one goblin left over. A goblin mystic, right? Goblin mystic can cast a spell called Curse. What Curse does is that for a number of rounds, Lance will have difficulties in his attacks. What does that mean? That means that for the duration of the spell, we'll just say that for the purposes of this demonstration, the spell lasts the entire combat. Lance has -1 to attack and saving throws. You'll also remember that last time we wrote down saving throws for Lance. I'm fairly certain he gets a chance to try and resist this, but fuck Lance. I think that's unfair to the viewers, though. We should give it a chance to see if Lance can succeed or not. So, on the character sheet, you'll see the spell saving throw of 17. You will take the 20-sided die and try to get 17 or higher in order to avoid that. Nope. Lance is a basic bitch. Cool. So now, as the enemy team is done, the turn order goes over to the players, and in this case, it's Lance. Lance will try to attack one of the goblins closest to him, probably the one in front of him. So in the same manner that the goblins did, you're going to roll the 20-sided die. 3. You're going to look at Lance's attack bonus of +1. The player will then say, does a 4 hit? And as the DM, since you have your stats on this fucking nice index card, you know a 4 does not hit AC 12. That means Lance needs to roll 12 or higher in order to hit any goblin. And with a 3, that is a miss. So this doesn't seem like it's going to go too well for Lance. I'm going to leave it up to the imaginations of the viewers to figure out whether or not Lance survives that. I really feel like I need to take a drink. Hold on. It's really important when you're playing role-playing games to have booze nearby, because you don't know how fucking mad you're going to get at the shit your players do. Nos zdraví. Cool. So yeah. A typical encounter will last until the players have killed all of the enemies, or the enemies have fled, or the players are all dead. We're going to continue a little longer just to demonstrate some other things. Let's say that by some lucky miracle, Lance gets a super duper nice lucky shot. Let's say the player says, I want to throw my sword at this goblin right here. And as a DM, you have to make these spot calls like, okay, does he have a chance to do this? Does that make sense? Sure, why not? We don't really like Lance, but we're not going to deny him the chance to make a fool of himself, right? So let's say that by some lucky... What the fuck? See that? I hate that shit as a DM. Fuck you, Lance. So, a 20 is what we call a critical. That means that the best possible outcome has happened in the fight. In this case, that means that Lance, through some ridiculous chance of fate, has thrown his longsword at the Goblin Mystic. And we will now look at the information for the longsword, which is a d6. So instead of rolling 1d6, when you crit, you roll 2d6. So now he has done 8 damage. We're going to check the sheet. And we see Goblin Mystic has 3 HP. So Lance has borked this Goblin Mystic. Dead. So you are the DM, and that pretty much means that your job is to interpret the things that happen. I'm going to say that these little goblins weren't expecting their leader to get one-shot by this dainty-looking long-ear motherfucker. Maybe they don't actually like that. Maybe they get freaked out. So we're going to look at these stats again. You see this morale of 6? You're going to take these 2 6-sided dice. And if you roll underneath that 6, the goblins are going to stay in the fight. But if you roll over, they have decided they really don't want to fuck around with this elf any longer. These are suicidal-ass goblins. They don't give a fuck. They're going to stay and fight. So even though Lance had a really good, lucky shot with that sword, the goblins are going to stay in the fight. You'll also notice that I didn't apply the curse to that 20, because a natural 20 will pretty much override anything that you had planned for your game. You hate this as a DM. This is one of the worst things that can happen to you. Likewise, one of the worst things that happens for a player... see? Is the 1. We're going to talk about the 1 now. A 1 typically is the worst possible thing short of death that happened because of your action. So let's say that Lance was trying to escape the goblins. Right? He was trying to escape. And the DM will know that around here there was a net trap prepared for him. So he'll say, make a death saving throw, because we already discussed that saving throws make 0 sense, right? So he rolls his die. He tries to get his death saving throw. It is a 10, but we'll say that it's a 1 for now because fuck Lance. He fails his saving throw, and it's the worst possible outcome for him. Not only is he trapped in the net, but the net so violently springs that I'm going to make a judgment call and say that he takes some damage from how quickly it bends his limb. So, take 1 fucking HP, you stupid long-eared elf. And we're going to take our thing right here. And we're going to lower his HP by another 1. 5. This is the manner that the DM is going to make these spot calls. And that's really the core of the game as the DM. You make decisions about what you think would be interesting or logical to happen. Don't worry so much about knowing all the rules, because the players won't know all the rules. You're not expected to either, but you are expected to make consistent rulings. If you made Lance make a saving throw to avoid the trap the first time, it would probably be good to continue to do that with other traps. Make a saving throw for the other traps. But if the player can come up with a reason that seems sound as to why the trap would be avoided, like let's say the player playing Lance says, I don't run down the hallway, I hug the wall and try my best to stay out of the middle. Right? Maybe you'd figure, okay, Lance is taking a little bit of precaution here. Maybe there's still a chance he gets hit, but you're a little lenient and you give him a bonus. This is essentially what your job as a DM is. You're trying to figure out how to arbitrate these things that happen in the game. So yeah, this was how to handle a combat encounter in basic fantasy RPG. If this was at all helpful, I'm extremely happy for that. Until next time, take care.